All right, so let's start our discussion on chapter 1 of the book. This is the introduction to the study of globalization. But before that, let me read to you the intended learning outcomes of this chapter. At the end of this lesson, students are expected to have a better grasp of the concept of globalization and should be able to, number one, define what globalization is and what it stands for in our contemporary world, differentiate the competing conceptions of globalization and undermine the various uh, schools of thought and paradigms on globalization. Third, understand the raison data of globalization, its goals and aspirations. Fourth is to equip students with 21st century learning and develop higher order thinking skills that will lead towards a deeper understanding of globalization and its role in the world, in the Philippine society, as well as its role in the individual formation of the students in relation to their future respective professions. All right. So in today's constantly changing world, societies are becoming increasingly interdependent and have more social, economic, political, and cultural relationship. So when we study globalization, one thing that you have to remember always is the word interdependent. What do we mean by interdependence? Simply means that there are things that uh, we need that only other countries can provide for us, and these countries also, our neighboring countries, do have needs of which the Philippines and other nations can only provide. Basic example for that would be the Philippines as an agricultural country, as an agricultural state, meaning the major industry in the Philippines is agriculture. Okay, our economy depends on agriculture, the production of agricultural goods and products. However, the Philippines do not have machineries. We do not have factories. Okay, although we have, but it's not too much compared to those very developed and industrialized nations. Okay, so even if we are rich in agricultural product, but again, the problem is that we do not have ammunition, we don't have military equipments, we don't have fighter jets, we don't have submarines, etc., etc., because this can only provided to us by the other nations or by the other states, and that's what we call interdependence. It means that uh, we cannot survive on our own. There's um, no man is an island, no. So there are things that we need. That's why we need other countries to provide for us, and we can also provide for them the things that they need. Okay, so in on the end of those industrialized nations, okay, some of them are dependent from Africa because they have to ask raw materials, nickel, no, minerals, lahat. Okay, pero ang Africa naman, wala silang pang process ng product, wala silang factory, no, wala silang technological advancement that would process these goods. Okay, so that's what we meant by interdependent. Similarly, the problems and issues that characterize the contemporary world are interconnected and multidimensional. Again, in this subject, we will learn that our actions has an implication on the international community, on the global community, and not within our country and not within our community. But again, it has an implication to the whole world. Okay. As a result, the various actors, states, organizations, and citizens are called upon to work together to find global solutions. So when we say actor states, um, we have a lot. We have what are the or who are the actors in the international community? Of course, we have states, meaning bansa, mga country, mga nasod. Okay, we also have international organizations and private corporations. Okay, so these are the actors in the international community. So may mga examples sa international organizations like European Union, United Nations, ASEAN, okay, OAS, African Union, and so on and so forth. We also have World Health Organization. Okay, these are organizations. What else? Unilab, mga corporation, mga well-known corporation. All right. So A brief history of globalization. We can see here that in the globalization 4.0, of which we are currently experiencing and enjoying, no, it's the leading exports during the globalization 4.0 are the digital goods and services. No, that's why we have technological advancement, very innovative computers, etc., etc. And who are the leading nations in the current globalization? It's always no U.S. and Chinese government. Okay, compared to the previous eras or globalization. Now, you see the process, okay, from raw materials and basic goods, we went to the production or the export of textile, the industrial goods, okay, and that's globalization 1.0. And for the globalization 2.0, that's when the rise of factories came, no, in the in in industrialized country or those developed countries. Okay, and for the globalization 3.0, the global supply chain, and that's why economic activities has increased. Okay, so when we say economic activities has been increased, ito yung ano na, post-war na ito eh, no? Meaning wala nang giyera. Talagang wala nang giyera. Unlike the previous period of globalization where there was World War One, there was World War Two, and there was Cold War, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's why warfare really is kind of disadvantageous. No, warfare do not produce good things to a country because um, it would really destroy you economically. It would really destroy you politically. Okay, that's why it would not in any way contribute to your progress as a nation or as a state. Okay, so let's talk about the different concept of globalization in the different field of education. Okay, so let's talk about globalization in sociological viewpoint, right? According to Anthony Giddens, globalization is the intensification of worldwide social relations which link distant localities in such a way that local happenings are shaped by events occurring many miles away and vice versa. So because of globalization, you were able to communicate to your friends, you'll be able to communicate to your family and relatives, even if they are living or perhaps working abroad. Okay, so it is as if that distant is being um, is being removed between you and your family members, between you and your friends, because of the technological advancement, because of technology, because of social media. You're able to communicate despite distance. Okay, so you can call to each other, you can talk to each other, you can video call, okay, you can email each other, right? So this also how we appreciate and define globalization. Okay, so it would seem that your local events occurred, no? Even if, for example, there's a birthday celebration in your family, okay, and your perhaps your mother or your father um, is living abroad or working abroad. Yeah? So even if they are outside the country, they can watch you. They can, uh, they can be with you during that celebration, although virtually. Okay, so globalization really has impacted uh, hugely the lives of every individual. Robertson also defines globalization as a concept that refers both compression of world and the intensification of consciousness of the world as a whole. So in globalization, we are being compressed. Okay, so distance is being removed. Okay, borders are being removed because even if we are located um, in the different how do you call this region, okay? Okay, we are located in different countries, we're located in different region. Okay, it is as if we are still compressed. Why? because our consciousness does not only uh, does not only depend and does not only focus on the national level or the national sphere, but it'll also focus on the consciousness of the entire international community. As I've said, no, when you are an individual and when you are a global citizen, you do not only look into the benefit of your own country, you do not only look into the benefit of your community, your own community, but you will be concerned more and you have to look at also the interest of the entire global community because you're a global citizen already. Okay, so the world is being compressed because of this process, because of globalization. On the other hand, David Harvey introduced globalization as the compression of time and space and the annihilation of um, distance, meaning distance is being eliminated. Okay, although we may differ as to time zone and so on and so forth, but mm, because of globalization, okay, because of this process of having linkages, direct linkage from one country, from state one to state two, from country B to country C, and so on and so forth. Okay, we are actually compressing time and space. Okay, we can easily communicate with other nation. We can easily visit them. So it's like a borderless concept of society. Okay, that's how they conceptualize globalization. Okay, how about globalization in economic viewpoint? Okay, because the previous slides talk about the globalization in sociological viewpoint. Here, okay, let's look at the economic viewpoint. Right. So internationalization and multinationalization are phases that precede globalization. Globalization marks the increasing irrelevance of nation state, meaning what's the concept of nation state? No, individualism, meaning, for example, the Philippines has to do uh, its work for the benefit of its own. Okay, whose status as the dominant political organization was acknowledged by the Treaty of Westphalia. Okay, so when we say nation state, that means it means political unit where the ethnic group and the state itself is being um, merged or congruent. Okay, so that's what we meant by concept of nation state. So here, in the economic viewpoint of socialization, basically, nationalization and multinationalization are phases that precede globalization, primarily because states need to engage in economic activities. The fact that we are importing products, the fact that we are exporting at the same time, no, we are exporting our agricultural products to other countries and vice versa. Okay, they're also exporting their own goods to the Philippines, the goods that the Philippines needed. Okay, what are these? No, for example, mga surplus products, mga refrigerator, fridge, no, let's say cars. Okay, we want to import cars from them, rice, no, all the things that we need, no? Where we have to engage in economic activity for our survival, because since again no man is an island, it cannot sustain the needs of its people, and if it cannot sustain the needs of its people, there is a necessity to engage with them economically, okay, for the purpose of survival. Okay. So, by the way, namali lang yung slide ko. It's still part of the economic viewpoint. Globalization is dominated by global economic activities like, first, neoliberal regime is contemporarily used to refer to market-oriented reform. Policies such as eliminating price control, deregulating capital markets, lowering trade barriers and reducing state influence in the economy, especially through privatization and austerity. So this is the rise of capitalism, no, the neoliberal regime. So when we talk of neoliberal regime, we are talking about these things: eliminating price control, uh, lowering trade barriers. No, under the World Trade Organization, every state or every member state is encouraged to remove trade barriers, meaning we really have to engage into tawag dito, economic activities. We don't discourage trading. Okay? In fact, trading is being encouraged under the WTO clause. No, na dapat mo kuan ka because of interdependence, you have to engage in trading. No, because we acknowledge the fact that we are interdependent with one another. Okay, so usually there are violations of the WTO clause because you are preventing trading, no, or you discourage trading. Such the case of tuna dolphin and shrimp turtle case. No, I will share these stories to you later on. Okay, this is the case between Europe and US. Kanang that's the case of shrimp turtle. Okay, and tuna dolphin. It's a different case also. It's I think Vietnam is involved in that case against US also. So in that case, US violated the WTO clause because it prevented itself from trading, which is not supposed to be the case because the under the WTO clause, you're supposed to engage in economic activities. Second, reduction of tariff it imposes on its import. Tariffs are considered economically inefficient because they make imports less competitive than domestically produced goods, which can result in more expensive products for consumers. The creation of transnational corporations. So what are tariffs? No, tariffs are imposed by Bureau of Custom. No, so for example, si Mr. A, no, si Mr. A nag-import siya ng produkto galing sa Europe, no? Kumuha siya ng car, no? Palagay natin tatlong car. Nag-import siya doon, pinadala dito sa Pilipinas. Upon arrival of these cars in the Philippines, you have to pay the taripa, no? Bayaran ni mo ang gobyerno. Okay? So, that is one of the parang manifestations of global economic activities brought about by globalization. Okay? So, according here, too much importation of product is not in any way good for your economy. Why? Because it will destroy, okay? It will gradually destroy the domestically produced goods, no? For example, if you import kanang spicy nga mga ramen from Japan or from China, for example, or Korea, no? You import ramen, and then once it arrives here in the Philippines, no, it is a challenge, and it will threaten, of course, the domestically produced products, like for example, Lucky Me, Quick Chow, no. If you let's be honest, no, mas masarap man talaga ang mga imported goods kumpara sa mga noodles dito sa Pilipinas, no. Talagang mas masarap pa sila. Okay, so it's a threat, okay, and it would make the domestically produced products less competitive because you allowed foreign products to enter the Philippines. That's why kung foreign products gani, medyo mahal yun sila. Okay, because aside from the tariff, okay, the price itself of the product, it's also expensive already, right? Kay kung pantay ra nimo ang presyo sa quick chow ug sa ramen from Japan, okay? Do you think Filipinos would purchase Lucky Me over imported product from Japan? No. Okay? So that's how you are going to balance that. Third, improvement of multilateral trade organizations, having several or many-sided, participated in by more than two nations. Economic activities can also be achieved successfully through multilateral trade or bilateral trade. When we say bilateral trade, it's commonly, uh, it means that there are at least two countries who engage into economic activities or an agreement. That's why it's called bilateral. When we say multilateral, it involves two or three, more than three, okay, states, okay, more than two states who engage into an economic agreement. Okay. Okay. So, what are the reasons why there's competing definition of globalization? Okay. Ano bang reason? Bakit nagkakaroon ng differences with respect to the globalization? Because iba-iba sila ng field eh, no? And if they are in different field, of course, it's automatically obvious that they have different ideologies. They have different line of thinking that they follow based on their field, okay, based on their study, based on their orientation, okay. And because of this, we have different appreciation of what globalization is, because globalization is wholesome, no, it covers everything. It's generic in nature. It covers almost everything that is uh, enjoyed by people, okay. So it covers the culture, the society, it covers political aspect, it covers economic aspect, social cultural, social political, and all those things, no. So it's very wholesome, okay. That's why if you are coming from a different field, of course you have to explain and define globalization in accordance to your field. So if you are from the medical field, you have to explain globalization in your own way, okay, based on your orientation. Okay, if you're from the medical field, you are going to appreciate the effect of globalization based on the advancement of hospitalization, the advancement of healthcare services, the advancement of um, the modern day treatment, okay, the modern surgeries, okay, procedures, modern procedures, no, in treating diseases or treating illnesses. Okay, you get that. So that's the basically the reason why we have competing definition of such. So let's talk about globalization as a process, condition, and ideology. According to Steger, he explains that globalization has been commonly understood as a process, condition, or an ideology, because we never know sa beginning globalization. Is it a phenomenon? Is it a condition? Is it an ideology? Is it a belief? Is it a custom or whatever? Okay. So Steger gives clarification on this. So he explained globalization as a process. It is viewed as a multidimensional set of social processes that generate and increase worldwide social interdependencies and exchanges, while at the same time fostering in a people a growing awareness of deepening connections between the local and the distant. So definitely it's a process. Okay. So how do you engage with other countries? If you're the president, for example, of the Philippines, uh, if you're the president of the Philippines, you have to be courteous. You have to be respectful, not to your fellow leaders. Okay, because it is the only way of um, expressing or manifesting, okay, good impression to your fellow political leaders. Okay, so kung bad ang ilang impression sa imuha, negative ilang impression sa imuha, do you think um, they would be inclined in meeting with you or doing agreement with you or doing any arrangement with you? Of course not. Okay, so it is a process because you have to, again, you have to For example, insofar as the leaders are concerned, they really have to talk, they have to deliberate, they have to discuss, and they have to sign. No, they have to manifest their affirmation that they have agreed on that particular, let's say, whether it's a treaty or it's an agreement between the states. Okay, so after that, when these things are also are already developed, no, it would really increase the level of relationship between these nations, despite the distance. Okay, so it's a process. By recognizing social interdependencies, leaders talk to each other, deliberate to each other, so that they can find a way and they can find a solution for uh, the progress of their respective nation. How about globalization as a condition? It refers to globality as a social condition characterized by transplanetary connectivity and supraterritoriality. Transplanetary relations, globality is about the establishment of social links between people located at different places of our planet. So what do we mean by supraterritorial relations? These are social connections that transcend territorial geography. Okay, globalization as a second social condition is characterized by thick economic, political, and cultural interconnections and global flows that render political borders and economic barriers irrelevant. So, di ba? Steger and other authors from different field, no, they really assert that when we say globalization, political borders and economic barriers become irrelevant already. Okay. So what do we mean by supraterritoriality? So I think the best example for supraterritoriality would be the European Union. Okay. Ethnic wise, tribe wise, culture wise, no, they're considered to be a nation state. Okay. Okay. And to me, they're the most successful international organization in the international community. Okay. In Europe, okay, as long as the member of which you are a citizen is a member of that organization, then you can work wherever in Europe. Okay. And they will recognize you. They will really accept you. How about ideology? Steger explains that globalization exists in people's consciousness. No? So sa tao siyang mindset, sa tao siyang belief, sa tao siyang idealism or prinsipyo. Because it consists of a set of coherent and complementary ideas and beliefs about the global order. So if on the people's consciousness, they believe that there should be a global order, we should not follow, no, the history na because of the greed in economic resources, because of greed in political resources, that's why there's conflict, and when there is conflict, there is war. Okay? Diba yan naman ang cycle during that time, no? Because of the differences in the ideologies, differences in the beliefs and the culture, and then there comes a time when each nation state or each country are doing what they are off to do at that time, because your interest at that time is for the survival of your country. And that's why you have to look for resources. You have to go to Asia. You have to go to Africa to look for resources. And so that your countries will have or will be able to survive. Okay. So it's an ideology because it will compress the global community. Okay. And at the same time, on the consciousness of the people, they believe that there should be global order. You get that? So what are the 6 core claims of globalization as an ideology? First, globalization is about the liberalization and global integration of markets. No? Let's open the markets. No? Let's open the ports so that we can help each other. No? Philippines, i-open imong ports kay nanginahanglan kag sakyanan diha. Nanginahanglan ka og mga factories nimo dira. Nanginahanglan kag mga military equipments nimo dira. Especially that you are um, on the verge of conflict with Chinese government over the West Philippine Sea. Okay, um, European states or Japanese territory, you have to open yourself because you do not have salt, no? Wala mo yung mga agricultural products kayo, then maybe we can provide for you. And you can also provide in exchange of the product that we give you. Second, globalization is inevitable and irreversible. Okay? Just imagine and just look at and observe what's happening around the world. That's globalization. Nobody is in charge of globalization. And globalization benefits everyone in the long run. Okay? Globalization furthers the spread of democracy in the world. Okay, so in the process of globalization, it will encourage you to, you have to follow, diba, if you engage in another country, and if um your policy, your political policy is still antiquated, okay, there's a possibility that the countries will not somehow uh they will they will not be encouraged in meeting you because you do not have the same idea. You do not have the same ideology. Okay. And that in itself, the liberalization and the opening of market is already a manifestation of democracy. Because at that time, before, now there's no liberalization. Okay. Everyone is being guarded. Everything is being guarded. Okay. Every action is being restricted. Okay, but now you can just engage in economic activities as long as you have friendly relationship and you have a good relationship with each other, then you can engage with all these activities. Globalization requires a global war on terror. That's why terrorism class, it's considered as a universal crime. Okay, so far as Philippine law is concerned. Okay. Kung na yung mga terrorism nag-invade, no, it is not just the enemy of the Philippines, it's the enemy of the international community. Okay, when for instance Afghanistan has been invaded by Taliban, okay, and they are overpowered by the Taliban, it's not supposed to be the only problem of Afghanistan, but it's a threat to the global community. Because who knows, no? After 1 week, after 1 month, after a year, Taliban will invade other countries also. Extremist groups, okay, from other countries would also do the same thing in overtaking their government. Okay, so you see, there's interdependence, no? Individualism or individualist concept should be disregarded already because in the globalization, we are responsible already, not only to our own community, but we are responsible to the interests of the entire global community. Okay? Okay. So, despite these discussions, okay, there are a lot of misconceptions also about globalization. Okay. So in short, I'll be contradicting the statements I had, some of the statements I had earlier. Okay. First, the globalization as internationalization and globalization as liberalization, universalization, and westernization. So we say that because of globalization, we are removing entirely the borders, we are removing the ports, we are removing the authority of the state to guard their own country because we encourage and we in globalization there should be economic activities. Okay, there should be integration of markets, privatization. Okay, but the question is that true in real life? Yes. Okay, yes, it's true that we have to engage in economic activities in the reduction of tariff, and the removal of trade barriers, but it doesn't mean, okay, that we are absolutely free to go inside the other country, to visit another country, okay? Because in international relations class, consent is always material. it's always important to have consent. Meaning, when we say consent, you have to respect the laws of that country. Okay? So even if best friend kaayo si um, China and USA, it is not a license for China to just go enter the US government and then it will do anything that that China wants to do. No, it cannot be done. Okay, because if that is the case, if we follow the irrelevance of borders and the irrelevance of trade barriers, then why do we have passports pa? Bakit pinaghahanap pa tayo ng passport? Bakit kailangan pa natin magdaan sa security sa airport, sa immigration? Bakit pa tayo dumaan dyan? Okay? So, despite these principles, despite the effect, okay, brought about by globalization, again, it's never a license for these states, no matter how close they are, no matter how deep is their friendly relationship. Okay, it cannot be a license to intervene and enter the country without its permission and without following its domestic rules or domestic law. Okay, I hope you get that. Bye.